Hello, everybody, and welcome back to week 44 of tracking our local shifting real estate market here in Burlington, Camden, Gloucester counties of southern New Jersey, 900,000 and below. And today is November 1st, so we get to actually do a little bit of October averages. We have 8 weeks left in the year. It's been a long ride so far to get here. These averages have been super helpful in telling a story, contrary to what I have heard in a lot of the news of the national real estate scene. And that's why it's so important for us to do this as a local snapshot. Because if you were to only follow the national news, you would see that pricing is down all across the country. You'd see that there were 17, 25% drops in certain areas of the country like California and Colorado and Texas and Florida. But they're not here. That's not this area. New Jersey, being the densely populated state that it is, has its own rules. Where we are geographically in this country has its own rules. The fact that we're outside of the sixth largest metroplex in the U.S., in Philadelphia, has its own rules. The fact that we have an incredibly rich neighbor to the north and an incredibly rich neighbor to the south in D.C. and in New York, respectively, south and north, you get the gist, makes us a little bit different. The fact that we don't have a huge new construction, I don't want to say issue, but that's the basis of a lot of our new housing and our new home sales is a new construction. That's not us, right? We're not at the mercy of builders and developers. We are a traditional resale, reflip market. That's what this market is. So while you may, again, continue to see these things on the national stages, I don't care about real estate in Idaho. Okay, I don't care about real estate in Sandusky, Ohio. I don't care about real estate in Austin, Texas. That's not where we operate. Okay, I operate in Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and primarily for my buyers, the Burlington, Camden, and Gloucester County areas. And for my sellers, I cover a little bit of a larger area, and let's just cut to the chase of why. I don't have to drive there as often, right? If I'm running a buyer out to Hatboro, I have to drive that hour every time to get there. Whereas for a seller, I go there maybe 2 to 3 times, one for the listing appointment, one to actually list the home and put the sign in the lockbox in the yard, and another time to go over there to just to help them out with an object or two. So you're not going out that much. Anyway, with that being said, I want to review some of our averages from October. We're going to go over the fact that we actually set 2 different records this week, and we have a second highest record this week. And there's one extra graph that I added this week that I have not added in previous weeks, and that is our 30-year fixed rate mortgage average in the US. I finally decided, I can't tell the whole story of what's going on without one of the 3 main pieces. The listing price, the available inventory, and the interest rates are the 3 things that tell this story better than anything. And I'm sorry, I'm trying to get like a piece of hair that's been in my eye this whole time. Sorry about that. So let's talk about this. Total active listings was the second highest that it has been all year. Okay. And you can see as we take a look at this blue graph here, you can see that back in the beginning of the year in January, we had an average of 1,501 total active listings on the market at any one period of time. We tanked in the first part of this year when that was the super rise in inflation, right? We saw a huge rise in inflation. Everybody freaked out. Nobody was moving. Nobody was putting their home on the market, and they didn't know what to do. Now that the inflation part has started to calm down a little, we've started to see this kind of back to normalcy, this little bit of consumer confidence coming back. And so you can see since April to May to June, July, August, September, and now October, we have rebounded all the way back to January levels, literally within 1 listing difference. October was just a smidge higher than where we were there. So what does that mean? Well, let's keep going because we're going to have to take these 3 things together, but pretty good week. And again, we're at 1557 this past week. So we're even higher than what this average is. You can see the trend, 1473 and 1460 up to 1518 up to 1557. So it has significantly increased just in this last month in October. As we come down, our new listings and pendings were at a nominal amount, a fairly normal amount, but they were eclipsed by closed units, which I don't love to see, especially as we're trying to add some more inventory back, but it is what it is. Expired, withdrawn, and canceled listings were, again, at a fairly normal amount. There's not really a whole lot of news here. But the one that we did set a record on, this first one, is the total amount of price reductions. So we stood here and we start saying, okay, Connor, well, why are price reductions at a record high? And they were at almost another record high just 2 weeks ago. Well, it's because you can see our median listing price has been basically the same. But there have still been some sellers and still some agents who are pricing like it's April through July. I chatted with 2 of the agents yesterday in my office. I said, oh, inventory is really down, right? I said, compared to what? What are you looking at? What, are you just making stuff up? Are you just making stuff up to tell people that there's scarcity? No, inventory levels are actually back to being at a pretty healthy level. That's not really quite the issue at the moment, but we have a lot of price reductions. I think it's because people aren't catching up with fast of the fact that there are more listings here. There are more options for these buyers, and the buyer pool is dwindling. Because when we look at interest rates, look at where we've gone over this year. Look at this. We started in between 6 and 6.5 in the beginning of the year. Came up over 6.5, and then we hit the 7 mark back in probably like July, August, and now we're all the way up here into almost 7.5% at 7.79. That's incredible. So yeah, there have been more homes to choose from, but the buyers have been falling out at an equal rate. So no wonder we're seeing the prices stay stable, right? Let's go back to macroeconomics. Let's go back to our statistics class, right? Our 101 econ. When the cost of something increases, the demand will decrease. The cost of something has increased here. We have seen the cost of a mortgage in the US has increased, right? So the demand has fallen. Well, when the demand has fallen, what does that do to our supply? Our supply has increased. Okay. Now, the price of the asset has stayed the same. The price of the home has stayed the same, but that doesn't mean how much that home costs has stayed the same. It's a little different. While the listing price has fairly much basically stayed the same since June, the cost to buy that house since June has gone up significantly. It's gone up almost one full, basically from here up to, here up to all the way up to here. We're going up a huge amount. So that's what's happening, is that affordability. That's the word I want you to start thinking about as you think about all these things. It doesn't really matter necessarily what the price is. It matters more about how affordable is this? How much do I have to pay as a percentage of my overall budget am I going to have to pay on housing? So that's the thing that we've started to see here. Now, average days on market and median days on market, it's going to take a while for these to start to really shift in any meaningful way. But we did set another record, and that was the total volume. Total volume is simply the number of listings that are on the market multiplied by their listing price. And that gives us the total volume on the market. And we're at the highest volume that we've been all year. Okay. That's the highest volume that we've been at all year. And our median list price, yeah, went up $100, but it's, again, still basically the same thing right here at $339, $340. Okay. So let's start really talking a little bit more about these interest rates. Okay. Let me just go ahead and get the cat that's deciding to land on us for this video. She sits with me all the time. She knows that we're supposed to be recording. So what do? We're sitting here. We got these really high interest rates. And again, here's the thing with this interest rates. The interest rates are at these point because the Fed has been increasing the base interest levels, and that's been helping the U.S. economy bring money back into the economy to fund what? Well, if you've been paying attention to the news at the moment, and we are not a political show here, but we do have to understand the factors on a global scale that are affecting us here at our local scale. And the fact is that the federal government is staring down the barrel, kind of figuratively and metaphorically, or literally and metaphorically, of war, right? Of supporting the Ukraine war efforts, of supporting the Israeli war efforts. I take no sides on this. I'm just stating what the facts are of what the government has to do and is doing at the moment. And so we're looking at these interest rates and we say, when's this going to turn around? Well, we're also heading into an election year. So there may be a little bit of a downward pressure on interest rates as we start going between now and February, because the Democrats will want to keep us happy and think that housing is a major sector, and the fact that we have seen our affordability really eaten up over these last 4 years in terms of just what homeowners are going to be doing. I pass no blame to who this is. It's just the reality of what we're reacting to what the policy has been. So we sit here and we say, okay, as a buyer, this is a really hard time to purchase because the cost of my money is so much higher than any other point in time. The other problem is that most of you, if you do currently own a home, you're sitting here and saying, wow, I'm really happy I still have my interest rate of 3.1% or at 4.2%, or some of you had 2.75% or even lower. And you're saying there's no way in heck that I would consider selling my house right now and getting this. Like, yeah, I could probably sell my house for pretty good money, but I'm also seeing that like price reductions are pretty high. There's a lot of actually other homes on the market at the moment, so I'm not actually getting it. And the amount of available buyers is really tanked. So I might not be selling this in a day like I thought I would, right? The good listings are still going to have multiple offers. It's still at that point, but not every listing gets that at this point. And then as a seller, you're sitting here saying like, well, did I miss the top? Did I miss the top? Right? It looks like the best time to have sold probably would have been June and July of this year. And now we're sitting in a period where we're kind of holding steady, but there's, the difference between June and July and now is that there's 30% more other listings on the market that now I have to compete with as a seller, right? This is where it all starts to become much more effective to the agent that you work with, I think. And this is, yes, of course, as a realtor, does it matter what the agent you work with? Yes, of course. Of course I'm going to have this opinion. Of course I will. But I don't think it's for a sham reason. I have talked to a number of agents right now. I just taught a class at my market center last week, actually about running statistics and things like that. And I had one of the agents talk to me and said, like, they're like, I don't even know how to talk to my clients right now. And I think that's the problem, is that if you're not staying up to date with this, now look, I do this very in depth, but as long as your realtor is keeping track of these things and can articulate these things to you in an effective manner to help you, then they're a good agent for you, right? That's the whole point of me doing this as well, is that I want to be able to, any client that I speak with, and I've spoken with a number of you who watch this, is being able to break this down for your specific scenario. Now, here's one final kicker. And it's a little outside of the statistics of what we're running today, but I think it's a landmark situation. Yesterday, or 2 days ago, yesterday or the day before, a verdict came down, and there was a group of homeowners out in, I think, Mississippi or Missouri or one of the central states that is suing the National Association of Realtors, suing Keller Williams, suing Berkshire Hathaway, Home Services America, and a number of other affiliates, saying that as a company policy and as a National Association of Realtor policy, we have basically been in cahoots for this conspiracy to keep commissions artificially inflated. And there was something like $1.7 billion in damages are going to have to be paid out to this. Now, I'm a Keller Williams agent, right? I am part of this company, and ergo, I'm kind of part of what this is. Now, I'm not personally responsible for anything like this. This wasn't a me situation. This was just companies and the larger policies of what they are. But, we sit down and we say, whenever we sit down for a listing appointment, we say, commissions are negotiable, or we should. Now, would I be wrong in saying that, yes, most of my transactions have fallen around one or two basic commission structures? Yes, they have. And I talk to all my consumers about that. But I also give commission discounts to repeat and past clients, things like that. And not saying like I offer it as a service, like, oh, I'm doing it this, but there are certain situations where I've recognized that taking a lower commission is a better way to go for the transaction. I don't offer it as like a, hey, if you sign up with me, no, that's way against the rules. But there have been a number of times where I have negotiated my commission with a buyer and with the seller, right? We have used our commission as a negotiation tactic in order to try and get offers accepted or some things like that. We always make sure that we're running it by the title company, we're running it by the attorneys, we're making sure that we're doing it at that level appropriately and everybody's aware of what's happening and that it's not some big, hush hush under the rug thing. But what the problem with this is saying that in the future, let's talk about in the past. In the past, the seller has traditionally paid both the listing agent's commission and the buyer's agent commission, right? We generally we say, hey, if you're going to estimate your proceeds, you want to take about 93% of whatever your sale price is, because you got to pay the realtor commissions, and there's a little bit of left over after that. We give a general, rule of thumb like that. Well, this kind of general rule of thumb talk is what has gotten people into a lot of trouble, specifically these couple companies, the National Association of Realtors, Keller, Berkshire, and some of their affiliates. And so what's going to happen going forward is that it may no longer be the responsibility of the seller to pay the buyer agent's commission. Here's the problem with that. If you're a buyer, it's already really hard to afford a home in the US, right? We can see the interest rates are incredibly high. Now, what happens if you also have to pay your buyer's agent? So not only are you putting, 5, 10, 15, 20% down as a down payment for your home, then you have the closing costs of your transaction, which are prorated taxes, the title insurance, you have your mortgage lender fees, you have your homeowner's insurance that you have to get. Oh, wait, hold on one second. You were already pretty financially tapped out just getting those two things done. Now I need you to pay on top of that, the realtor who helped you find this home, you have to pay them as well. I don't really like this verdict. I don't like the direction that it's going to start putting the onus of paying the buyer's agent on the buyer, because what is a buyer now going to do? A buyer may consider entering into the real estate market without buyer representation. And so you go back to the situation where, okay, a buyer's just going to go and they're going to talk to the listing agent of a property and they're going to say, I want to put my offer in directly through you. You're allowed to do that now. Why doesn't it happen a lot now, though? Why? It's not because it's better. It's because the listing agent has signed a document called a listing agreement with that seller that says, I will give you my fiduciary responsibility. A fiduciary responsibility is something I take very seriously, and it's a financial and ethical obligation to that client. This listing agent has no agreement with you. Everything they do and say, and every position of negotiation, while they may smile while they do it, and while they may put their arm around you as a buddy, make no mistake, they work for the seller. And they are going to try and extract every dime out of you that they can and put it in their seller's pocket. Okay? That is what we're staring down and looking at over the next handful of years. This isn't going to come instantly. This is going to be years as it goes through. Appeals will be made, concessions will be made, compromises will be made, all of that will be made, and there will be some version of this that comes out on the other end. But the terrifying fact for me is that if buyers don't have buyer representation, we go back to the way of doing real estate when the literal phrase buyer beware was born out of. If you've ever heard of buyer beware, it was born out of real estate in like the 70s and the 80s when there was no buyer representation. And buyers had to literally beware of what was going on because they didn't have anyone to represent their interests. And this realtor, who often was wearing a 3-piece plaid suit, was this used car salesman. And one of the reasons why realtors are still one of the least trustworthy industries is because there's not a lot of education to start being a really important person. And there's a lot of agents who don't have a lot of money who will say whatever they need to do to get the deal done. I'm sorry. It's the truth. It's why there are millions of dollars in realtor and agent litigation every single year, because realtors do stuff like this. So where does that leave us? It's going to leave you in the hands of what I think is going to be a culling of the real estate industry. I think there will be a huge slashing of the amount of realtors that actually work in any one market. And anytime you reduce the amount of competition, I think you also reduce the options for the consumer. Every time you put policies in place like this that make it literally, I can't afford to work as a real estate agent and only do, 2 to 4 to 6 deals a year, because there are some agents who do that and less. They're not even going to be able to earn an income anymore, because most of the new agents and the inexperienced agents, as they come into this business, they can only work with buyers, because buyers, there's not a whole lot of stress, right? Especially if you don't have a home to sell and you're just like, hey, we're just looking at pretty homes and we're putting an offer in. That's fairly easy. But especially if you're going to list your home, if you're going through a divorce, if you're going through a foreclosure, if you're going through any of those stressful situations, you're not going to take a new inexperienced agent. You're going to take someone like myself, my team, some other established teams that have been in the business a while, who have navigated those before and who know what they're doing. So on one hand, am I kind of excited that there's going to be a lot of these one-off, two-off realtors that aren't going to be in the business anymore, that I personally sometimes think that they give realtors a bad name because they do have malpractice issues and they do things they're not supposed to do, and they do untrustworthy things. Yeah, I guess I'm a little excited to get rid of some of the bottom feeders out. But at the same time, some of those people are my friends. Some of those new agents are people that I care about and who got out of another industry because it was just crushing their mental health, and they came to real estate and they're enjoying what the work is and lifestyle, but it's a sales career and it's pure commission and it's hard to get their business up and running. And now you're going to take away their ability to earn an income from the buyers that they work with. That's really hard. But here's the rub, and here's how we're going to end it today. There's something called buyer agency. Now, when you list your home, you hire a real estate agent or a realtor to list your property. You sign a document with them saying, you are going to perform this service for me. You're going to put my home on the MLS. You're going to help me negotiate all the offers. You're going to get me from contract to close. You're going to handle all of that minutia, right? And it's a great service. And we offer a percentage of the sale, the commission, to do that. You can do the same thing as a buyer. But here's what that entails. As a buyer, you can also hire a realtor to be your exclusive buyer's agent. And so you can say, hey, buyer's agent, you are going to perform this service for me. You are going to help me search for those homes that are listed. You're going to help me prep and send an offer. You're going to help me navigate the home inspection. You're going to help me navigate the contract to close period. You're going to help me as we close, right? You're going to help do all these different things. And for that, I will be sure that you work for a certain percentage commission. Now, here's the kicker. Let's say we sit down and we say, okay, we're going to agree to a 2.5% buyer commission, 3%, 3.5, 2%, whatever it is. But let's say it's just 2.5% for this argument's sake. If we have on that agreement that as a buyer's agent, I'll be paid 2.5% of that commission, it says that the seller will pay whatever the seller is going to pay. And if there's anything missing, then you, the buyer, would be on the hook for that. So let's say you want to go see this house, 123 Main Street, and they're only offering a 1.5% buyer broker commission. Well, on our agreement, I'm going to be paid as a buyer agent 2.5% on this transaction. Guess where that extra percentage comes from? You, the buyer. So are you going to sign that agreement with a brand new agent? Most of the time, they're for 3 to 6 months at a time. Are you going to be willing to sign a buyer agency agreement promising that you'll pay that brand new agent who may or may not be helpful for you all the way up to 2.5 or 3% commission? And especially as we start going forward with this, where sellers stop agreeing to pay the entire buyer broker's commission. I don't know what's going to happen here, but I am a little concerned about what it's going to do. I'm okay if this really is better for consumers, then I'm all for it. I have my doubts, as were expressed in a lot of the counter arguments presented by Gary Keller and a number of the different people that went on and on Capitol Hill or wherever they had this trial and spoke about what their beliefs were. But we'll have to see how it happens. We'll have to see how these these compromises or these concessions and different things actually start to materialize, and what do we actually boil down to. So this is a big change in real estate on the national and the legislative perspective, but that we'll deal with over the next handful of years. What we're dealing with right now is a stable pricing structure, more listings coming on the market, and rising interest rates. So just another great day in South Jersey real estate. Anyway, have a good day, everybody, and I'll talk to you next week.